Hey, Closet Busters, come on and gather around. It's time once again to kick down those closet doors of life. We're here to escape our BS, explore our fears, and elevate our self-expression. I'm your host, Rick Clemens, bold move expert and coming out coach, and I'm going to take you to the party, the pulpit, the wake, and back to the party of living your life uncloseted. So come on, grab hold of yourself and get ready to step out, step up, and step into living your truth as we explore more stories, tips, and tricks for living your life uncloseted. Now let's get to the show. Hey, closet dwellers and bold move makers. It is time once again for Life Uncloseted. And you know what? Have you ever asked yourself these questions like, who am I, or why am I here, or gosh, what am I truly capable of? But then, what do you do with those questions? You're not alone. Most of us ask those kind of questions of ourselves all the time, but then, what kind of action do we take? What kind of bold move do you bust? Or do you just sit around waiting for the universe to deliver everything to you? I think it all really depends on how badly you truly want to answer those questions. And a lot of people are driven by their goals. Those goals that, say, okay, I'm going to get here, I'm going to do this, this is going to make this stuff happen. And you know what? Today's guest, he is the epitome of setting goals. He's been on national TV. He came out on one of MTV's shows. He's also written books about hitting your goals, making them happen, and stepping into your truth. And I thought, what better way to really talk about living your life uncloseted than to bring into focus why goals are such a bold move strategy for being who you are and what you want to be in the planet. And this young guy is also one of my WDSer friends. I know many of you heard me talk about people from World Domination Summit, and we're both going to be there this summer. And I thought, you know what? Let's get some goals on before we head up to Portland. He's actually a Portland person himself, so I guess I'll head up to Portland. But I just want to welcome to the show the author of The Ultimate Guide to Success, How to Achieve Your Goals in 10 Steps or Less, Mr. Dan McDaniel. Welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Thank you so much. That was a fabulous introduction.
I know. I worked hours and hours and hours. Actually, I pulled it together about 5 minutes ago. No, I'm kidding. I don't just pull it together. So hey, man, WDSers in the house. How exciting! This is awesome, man. I love it when I get to talk to one of my WDS family members. So glad to have you here, buddy. So
I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. So you had an interesting journey. Walked away from some stuff, came out on national TV, have met some pretty big name people, which I'm not going to let that cat out of the bag yet, but it seems that you seriously are one of those people that eats your own dog food, but I'm sure you didn't always eat your own dog food to get to this place where you realize that goals and getting them done, it's just a way of really living your life and living with passion. But there's always a backstory. I feel like there's always a backstory to people who finally figure some of these things out. So, I don't know. Tell us, man, how did you get to this space where you just go goals are really what make your life rock?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I think it was in high school. I just turned 25, so just a few years ago. I was in an organization called Future Business Leaders of America, and their whole philosophy was setting goals and around service and education and making progress. So I learned there that you have to set a goal and be perseverant to achieve it in order to actually get somewhere. So I'd say that was the foundation for me. And then along the way, I kind of lost my way. As a result of being in that organization, I ended up earning over $100,000 in scholarships and grants to go to college.
Wow.
And then I ended up walking away from that after 1 year.
Okay, any of you who are listening to this, we won't throw darts at him right now. There's a reason that he walked away from all this, okay? Just we have to trust the process sometime. Some of us, I didn't really cringe at that because I already knew the backstory, but I'm like, I'm sure some listeners are going, "Grr, why did you do that? That was $100,000 you could have gone to college on." So.
I was like, I'm just going to I'm just going to put all this effort into this thing and then just leave it. How about that?
There you go. But before we jump off of that, and I'm not going to give you shit about this because I think it's so important because I have an older daughter who just graduated from college. I have a younger daughter who's currently in college and kind of struggling. And then just lo and behold, this last week on TV, there was a news story about maybe college isn't really the right thing for some kids given the cost of college and stuff. And I think it's a bold move. I think it's a really bold move when somebody says, this really isn't for me. Because then you step into your power. So as you made that decision to like walk away from that, was it something that you felt really powerful about, or were you scared shitless and going, what am I doing?
Well, I have to tell you, dropping out of college was the easiest decision I've ever made.
Wow.
Yeah, the easiest. The hard part was telling everybody else. Because, I was this achiever. I was known as Dan the Man,
Right,
I was a rock star. So it's like, well, what do you mean you're just going to leave? You've worked for all this stuff, and you grew up in poverty, and now you have a way out. What are you doing? What are you talking about? So it was telling everyone else, telling my parents, telling my friends who were still in college. That was the difficult part. But for me, just following my intuition, I knew that's what I had to do.
It's interesting, Dan, because as you were saying that, I've already alluded to it that you came out on national TV, but that decision to not go to college is kind of similar to the decision to come out. It's like, okay, we know we're gay, but the hardest part is telling other people. And you knew you weren't going to go to college, but the hardest part was what everybody else was going to think. That's where the parallels of this beautiful story, and part of the reason I wanted you on was to help share how similar these journeys become when we put our life in different perspectives. It's like, okay, well, here's the perspective of not going to college. Here's the perspective coming out. But what was that draw for you of really truly knowing, okay, college is just, this isn't where I'm supposed to be? What was it that made you know that?
Yeah, just so we're clear, I did go for 1 year. But after that first semester, I just felt it. I was like, this is not where I belong. It wasn't about the college itself. It was about college in general. I felt like I was dying inside, I felt like I was there to do something, and I felt like they just kept restricting me and clipping off my wings and telling me to go study calculus or learn all the stuff I've already forgotten in high school. Now I'm just doing all that stuff over again, and I felt this heaviness, this burden of suffering every day just being in class. I loved being in the campus and being social and meeting people and expanding my mind, but actually being in the classes and that whole structure felt very restrictive, and it just was not the right place for me. Yeah, so it was just a heavy burden that I felt, and I knew after I actually got there that wasn't where I belonged.
And I'm amazed just because I was once many years ago, that age too, that you were so cognizant of this. Because it actually, as you were just talking, it kind of took me back to when I was in college. I went to private church college, and my parents insisted I go to a private church college. And then finally, by the second year, I'm like, wait, this ain't working. This is not working. Yeah. I'm paying all this money. Yeah. And mom and dad were doing the best they could, but it was going to be me who ended up with all the debt at the end of the thing, And I wasn't really engaged in the college I was at. I was like, okay, yeah, this is our faith and everything, but I'm just not here. And I find it so admirable that you felt this, and you were willing to put everything on the line, so to speak, and say, no, this is not where I'm at. I think too many times in this day and age, even as I watch my own child, and I've had numerous conversations with her over the last, year of her first year in college, saying, if this doesn't feel right, then we need to know. And if it's not, then let's find something else.
Yeah.
So what did that do for you as you finally came to that space and you said, I'm quote unquote freeing myself from this burden? What did that enable you to do next?
It's funny because I felt like toward the end of it, I felt like the only reason I went to college was so that I could come out. Because once I got there, I was out of the small town where I was from. I was in a bigger city in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and there were gay people all around me, and there were organizations, and I could befriend people and talk about what I was feeling. So after maybe 3 months being in college, I actually came out and I did the show on MTV.
Right. And as you did that show, did you know that that was going to be what was going to happen? Was that you were going to come out? Was that kind of the premise? Or was it like, hey, I'm going to be on the show and we kind of just live life and see what happens and unfolds?
Yeah, the premise of the show was coming out. What happened was I read in a newspaper about a different show MTV was doing, but I wasn't really interested in that show. So I looked on their website and I found this other show that they were doing. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to the producer. 2 days later, they emailed me. They called me. Then a week after the phone call, they were in Baton Rouge filming.
Wow. That's amazing.
They flew from New York, Baton Rouge. Yes. And we started the production process, and they filmed, day-to-day activities and me coming out to friends there. And then we went back home to small-town Louisiana, and we filmed there. Mm-hmm. So I knew going in exactly what was going to happen.
That's awesome. And I know you've probably been asked 100 different times all the ins and outs of that, but I'm more curious, now that you look at where you are, what's something that you know because of that experience has truly stuck with you in the life you now live?
What has truly stuck with me from it?
Yeah. See, this is when Rick asks the big questions and the guest gets really quiet because they're like, damn, that man's asking some tough questions here.
I haven't really thought about that. I think what it taught me was that once I think what it taught me was when you accept yourself, everyone else in the world has to accept you. Because I think you said earlier, I think you alluded to the point that maybe, telling other people is the hard thing. But I think for me, just telling myself, coming in, as they called it, was the hardest thing to do, really. Because before I filmed the show, before I did the, what's it called? Before you film the thing, then you send it in. Before I did the casting tape for the show, I realized I had never even said the words, I'm gay.
Wow.
Okay, so I said with the casting tape, I did it for like 3 hours, going back and forth, talking to myself like, I've never said this before. How do I do this? What am I saying? So it took me 3 hours to finally say I'm gay. Then the second time I said it, I was on television. So coming in was the hard thing for me. And then by the time I came out, it was a lot easier because I had already accepted myself and everyone else had no choice but to accept it. And if they didn't, they could ignore it or whatever. But, once I accepted myself, it was much easier for everyone else to accept me.
You just brought up something that's so important in this journey of coming out, regardless of what the coming out journey is. Because this personal acceptance, I call it going from being permission phobic to permission granted. You're afraid to give yourself permission to be who you are, but the moment you grant yourself the permission, I'm not saying it's going to be easier to tell everybody else, but there is a power, there is a fire within that starts to go, okay, I can be this, And I've seen it happen with entrepreneurs. I've seen it happen with a couple of clients who... Beautifully, I was coaching a couple, a husband and a wife, and I remember the wife knew the husband was coming out. She'd already knew he was gay, and they were on this journey. And I remember her specifically accepting the fact that I'm going to be a divorced woman, and I'm going to accept that. I'm giving myself to accept that that's what I'm going to be. And that was a big pivotal moment in their relationship. Because even though she knew it, even though she logically knew it, because he'd already told her, this is what was going down, she had to come to that place of accepting permission of this is who I'm going to be so that she could start the healing process and the moving forward process. And I know as you went through that, I could hear just as you were sharing the story and, when I kind of gave you that big question, it is probably the biggest piece of stepping into your own truth and your own power is saying, this is who I am, regardless of whatever that this is who I am is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as you started to do that and the show started to unfold, you also had this whole background of being Mr. Achiever and, going for things and everything else.
Yeah.
So how did this whole goal setting and getting things done, how did those two suddenly, I know they probably always were holding hands, but something that seems to have ignited, and you just were like, okay, I'm doing the show, and now I'm going to start writing books. What was the fire within that really started to erupt?
I think it was just being in a supportive environment. Where I'm from, people didn't really talk about feelings or dreams or, really anything other than just go to college and get out of this place, So I felt like just being around a solid group of people, different types of people, from all different types of backgrounds, was really the thing that opened my mind and said, oh, there's these other possibilities. I don't just have to do this thing, but this other thing that I feel deeply within myself is possible. Yeah, because now people are telling me it is, and I see other people doing amazing things. And so I think the environment was really the key factor for me.
It's amazing how so here's little known truths that Dan doesn't know about Rick. That I don't know that most of my audience even knows about Rick, that I'm going to share so that Dan knows that Rick really does get in more than he thinks. So I went to high school in Arkansas. So so I kind of get that whole mentality of, wait, this is what you go do. And I'm not saying just because it's Arkansas, okay? I don't want that to come off wrong. I don't want to bash Arkansas. Yeah. But there is a southern, quote-unquote, southern sensibility, so to speak, that here's what you do. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Okay, because this is what we do. And I wasn't a true southerner because I was a West Coast transplant to the South. But as you go through that experience, these are things you're supposed to do. And then suddenly you get out in the quote-unquote big world, So as soon as I left the church college and went to Oklahoma State, it's like, oh, wait, there's this whole other world here that I have options. I don't just have this curriculum I could follow. I could actually go this route, or I could go this route, or I could go this route. And I think what you so beautifully demonstrate in your journey is, wow, as soon as I open the door on this closet, then, I can open the door on this closet and on this one and on this one, and then things suddenly begin to move forward for you. So how soon after the show did you begin to really dive into, hey, this writer thing is really where I want to be? Or was that all part of the show as well, that you were already discovering this writing ability?
Yeah, that was not a part of the show. It's funny because growing up, I was always told I was a good writer. I remember thinking back to even in the fourth grade, one of my teachers read an essay of mine aloud in the class, and she didn't read anybody else's essay, but she read mine aloud, and she was so proud, and she went around the whole school telling all the teachers, like, read this essay, read this essay. I wish I had the essay so I could see if it was really that good. But I just remember from a very young age, the teachers praising me for my writing skills. But I didn't know that was something that I could actually do. I didn't grow up wanting to be a writer. I didn't know that was something people did as a career path, Right. Like, I knew people wrote stuff, but I didn't know writers could actually make a living, and I didn't know that was a real profession. Yeah. It just didn't click in my mind.
Do you even remember at all what the essay was about?
I don't know. I was in the fourth grade, and then it kept happening. So it was like every major milestone. So it would be like elementary school it happened, then middle school it happened, then high school it happened. So it happened once at every different grade level, and I remember each time, but I don't remember that very first one.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, but that just, yeah.
I had a very similar experience, and it's really vivid now, but I'm not like a great artist, but I dabble, and when I do dabble, there always something gets created that people are kind of like, wow, you did that? And I'm like, yeah. And finally somebody said, so you must have been doing this since you were really young. And I said, yeah, I was always creative, but I said, I don't really remember the very first thing. I remember a teacher telling me, oh, that was really good. And then one day I had just got up, I have this like... Not so much anymore, but I used to have this like Sunday morning thing, my own version of going to church, where I'd get up and I'd do something creative. My husband would be sound asleep, and one weekend I tore a fireplace apart and said, "No, this is the way it's going to look when we cover it with stone. Now it's going to look like this." And then one day I painted a painting, and somebody said, "Wow, that's really great! I can't believe you painted that." And that was the person who asked me, "When did this start?" So. That night, I'd already been into my own spiritual path and doing meditation and everything. So as I meditated that evening and got ready for bed, I said, show me what was my really first inspiration. That was my question. Show me the first inspiration. The next morning, I woke up with this very vivid picture that I remember now of me sitting. I went to elementary school in Colorado for a few years in a farm community, one-room schoolhouse, and I remember our teacher sending us outside to draw something. And I sat by the creek and I drew the creek and this tree and like this ladybug on a leaf. I remember it so vividly, but I hadn't remembered it until I said, show me. Show me what it was. That was like my first really, really, truly creative, spark, so to speak. And so now, every time I get ready to be creative, that kind of image, shows up for me. And it's been really interesting. So as you started to dabble into writing, man, what led you to this whole kind of success goals and doing some business writing and everything? What was the driver there? Because something was definitely of interest to you.
So in college, the first week in college, I attended a retreat called Leadership Immersion. And one of the things they asked was, if money weren't an object, what would you do? If you had all the time, money, the resources in the world, what would you do? And so the answer was, I would be a writer. That was easy. So after discovering college wasn't for me, I went back to that and realized, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I started working on my first book, and it was not a seamless process.
Right. They never are. They never are.
No. I went from being, Dan McDaniel, the achiever, to Dan McDaniel, I don't have a place to stay, because now I'm writing these books and I have a job, but the job's not paying me enough. So I went from getting paid $100,000 to go to college to living in my car for a year trying to be a writer.
Wow.
Yeah. So I actually published my first book from my car at age 20.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay, so how do I get out of this car? So that's when the whole success principles came out. That's when I started studying success and how do you set goals and how do you do this and that. So that's when the ultimate guide to success was starting to form after that experience.
So you just the driver, the achiever, that never really died. That's what I'm hearing. That
no,
innate stuff is always in there.
Yeah, I felt like my identity as an achiever had died because, clearly I wasn't achieving. I was, but it didn't look like it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was taking on a different form, but I felt like my identity was completely shattered. And for a while I was like, who am I? Why am I here? What is this about? I know I'm doing the right thing, but why is this so hard? It shouldn't be this hard. But I just kept at it even though I wanted to give up so many times. So finally I just got a better job while I kept getting better writing gigs, and I finally became a ghostwriter. I read this article once, and I got a mentor. His name was Daniel DiPiazza from a website called Rich 20-something, and he wrote this post about how you could make money online doing freelancing. I didn't know what freelancing was. I didn't know that was a thing. Right. So I started writing stuff online. So the first thing I wrote was a donation letter for $10. Okay, this one-page letter for a client, and I said, "Oh, someone's willing to actually pay me for something."
Wow.
And then it progressed to an editing job for $100, and then I did a resume for $200, and then I got a ghostwriting deal to write somebody else's book for $700, and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger. So finally, the writing was starting to work, and I started to work on the ultimate guide to success. And then slowly with each project, things kept building and building. And after a few years, I finally got to move to Portland, in my dream apartment, downtown Portland. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have really made it. Wow. So from 2013 to 2016, there was a massive transformation from, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. This is my first book and it's being published in my car, to, oh my gosh, I'm really living the life of my dreams right now in this amazing place.
That's amazing. But besides the books and everything else, there was a physical transformation, your own physical transformation. So you lost quite a bit of weight too.
Yeah, so that was actually in high school, actually. That was during the whole I'm president of the organization thing. So that's when the personal growth really started for me in high school. So from 2009 to 2011, about 2 years, I lost 90 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. I had watched I was watching an episode of the Oprah show, and her trainer was on, and she was talking about, all these people go on all these fad diets, and that's not how you do it. You really have to change your lifestyle.
Right.
So I said, oh, okay, I get it. It's about a lifestyle. So I started slowly changing the way I ate and the way I thought, and that really was the impetus for the transformation, just knowing that it was a long-term thing and not a short-term thing,
Wow. So the inevitable question that I have, which I know you've been asked numerous times, so how did you meet Miss O? That's a journey in and of itself.
Miss O. Okay, so, all right, so this was 2014. Randomly, I was watching an episode of TMZ. Just the weirdest, most strange thing. They come up, it's a very satirical show about, celebrities and stuff. And they said, oh, Oprah's going on tour like Beyonce. So I get a ticket, I get a VIP ticket to go meet Oprah. And I met her in October 2014 in Houston, Texas. She was doing a speaking tour. So I got a VIP ticket, and we got to go back. So I got to go backstage with her, meet her. We had brownies. They were amazing. I got a nice hug, a nice picture. It was about, I'd say, maybe 24 of us who had VIP tickets. But the other hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people were just, regular attendees.
So that was the Oprah weekend, right? That was the Oprah weekend.
Yeah, it was the Life You Want Oprah tour. Yep. Did you go?
I went to the one. I was at the one in San Jose. Yes, I was. So
nice. Was that the first one or the last one?
I think that was the very last one, actually. So
it
was an amazing experience. Yeah, I didn't have a VIP ticket because I was like, you know what, I don't want to spend the money, and I want to have the experience. And then it was cool. I met Ilana Van Zandt. That was cool. I met Gail. So that was cool.
You met her?
Yeah. So, and I just kind of ran into both of them accidentally. So it was just kind of like, okay, cool. I'm a huge Oprah fan, so I'm really jealous of you. So I'm gonna have to hate on you now for a little bit, but it's okay. We're sisters in sexuality, so I can't hate on you too much. But it is what it is. So one of the things this show is really truly all about is bold moves, and I think goals are part of it. I mean, no, I don't even think goals are part of making your bold move, because a bold move is a goal, whatever it is. There's a goal. What I've found to be helpful, and I'm curious, from, you and working with goals and everything, what I've found to be helpful is to be very clear on why, and I'm going to put it in my terminology, and then I'll have you do it in your terminology, but I always ask a client, why is that bold move truly important to you? And what is it you want to experience when you have done that? What is it you want to feel? And that, to me, is how we start to clarify why somebody's going to do something. I can say I want to lose 90 pounds, or I can say I want to grow hair back on my bald head, but if I don't know why I want to do that and what I want to experience once it's done, I don't find myself being very vested in it. So does that give us some advice in that arena for you? I mean, how do you get yourself motivated for goals? What are some of the recommendations you have put out in your book? A couple of them.
So I define success as living life in alignment with your values. So I feel like it's about just knowing who you are and what you really want to do, what matters to you, right? So one of the things that really matters to me is freedom. So a lot of my goals are about freedom. How can I feel more free? How can I feel more powerful? How can I feel more in control of my life? So for me, with the weight loss, this is about freedom. How can I be more free in this physical plane? How can I write a book that creates freedom in my life? Time freedom, financial freedom in a sense. How can I create these things? How can I set up my life so that freedom is at the forefront? So I would say identify your top 3 values and then build your life around those values based on that.
So I know listeners who listen to this show all the time hear me.
Mm-hmm.
I get on my soapbox about values all the time because actually that's the very first exercise, Dan, that I actually have my clients do. As soon as they sign up, as soon as they pay the money, then they get the link to schedule. But as soon as they do that, they get a couple of things, and the first thing is a values exercise, and it's a whole list of values, and it says which of these values are important to you, and then the second column is based on that value, how much in action are you in that value? So you scale it from 1 to 10. If you say, integrity is a 10, but you're only in action at a 5, Coach Rick here is going, okay, we have a problem. We need to fix something here. But it's a beautiful thing because it becomes the basis of pretty much all the work I do. Because I will jump back. Last night I was coaching a couple actually, and it's really about him being able to feel adventuresome and spontaneous and feel free because he's come out of the closet to her. They are trying to figure out how they can make this work and stay together because they really love each other. And even in the conversation last night, I brought up the values. I said, so for you to feel adventuresome and free and spontaneous, and it just came up. It's just part of the conversation. But these values are so important. And as you said, freedom.
Yeah.
You and I have that one in common. I wouldn't be doing the work I do. I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I wouldn't have the kind of work I do to support myself if it didn't give me freedom. I need to have freedom. Variety is another one for me. Variety is a huge value for me. I can't just do podcast. Well, actually, I probably could just do podcast all day. I really enjoy doing that. But it has to be with different people. And it has to be on different topics, that sort of stuff. So I'm glad you brought that value piece into play because I do believe it's so important. So very, very important. So as we wrap this up, man, and I know 30 minutes flies by pretty quickly here, but as we wrap up, what is something you'd love to leave the listeners with around goals and being true to yourself that might just help somebody? Because a lot of our listeners are, some of them are coming out of the closet. Others are sitting there in that cubicle of hell going, I wish I wasn't here. Others are like in crappy relationships, or maybe they are struggling like, I really want to shed the weight. So if you could just kind of leave a tidbit of advice around goals or whatever comes to mind, man, what would be the thing you'd love to leave the listeners with?
I would say that if you do the hard things, your life will be easier. But if you do the easy things, your life will be harder. Okay? Yeah, so if you do the hard thing, if you do the hard thing of coming out or of taking that step, it's going to make things a lot easier for you in the long term. But if you keep putting it off, if you keep suppressing those desires, if you keep suppressing yourself and hiding, your life is going to be really, really hard. It's going to be really difficult. So if you just do the hard thing now, you're going to reap the rewards in the future. But if you keep doing the easy thing, if you keep hiding, if you keep playing around, if you keep playing small, your life is going to be really difficult. And I know that's not what you want.
And how old are you again? 25?
I'm 25, yes.
Girl, you got some wisdom in you, let me tell you. That last statement was just like, okay, Ms. Oprah is being channeled right now. But no, I love that because it's something that I have to practice with myself all the time. It's like, okay, I don't want to do this. Well, get this done because then it's out of the way. Then you get to go do the stuff you really want to do. And it is the most difficult thing I think we as humans have to navigate is the tough stuff. Yes, it can be tough, but the minute it's done, then it's easy. It's gone. It's past. It's over. You know? And I love that. That was such a powerful way to kind of bring this thing full circle and to, I don't know, as you were talking through that, I went back to the WDS, pillars of community, service, and adventure. And it kind of reminded me of, when you do the tough stuff of showing up and going, okay, how can I serve? And how can I be someone in the community that, it's not just about me, it's about others. And when you push yourself to go on the adventure of life, rather than fear the adventures of what life can bring, life does become so much easier. And God, I'm so glad we got to have this conversation, man. I'm so happy.
So am I.
And just thrilled.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to... Dan and I have never met. We've crossed paths through, the lovely world of Facebook. But I can't wait to see you this summer, man, in Portland and just, hang and have a chat. So thanks again so much for being here.
Yeah, let's meet up.
Yeah. And all of Dan's books will be on the show page. Check them out. If you have some questions about setting goals, the best place you can find Dan is at danmcdaniel.net, not .com, .net.
Mm-hmm.
But that link will be on the page as well. And I'm pretty dang sure he could help you set and meet some goals if you just trust him to do it. Because you can tell he's pretty damn driven. And he's done a pretty good job of creating his freedom and guiding his own path. So, again, brother, thank you so much for being here. We totally appreciate you and really thrilled to be sharing you with my audience.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
All right, there you have it. Another episode of Life Uncloseted has come to an end, but that's okay. We're going to be back in just a couple of days sharing more stories, tips, tricks, and wisdom for helping you live your life uncloseted. And you know what? You can share too. Just take a few moments if you like and if you believe in this podcast and share it with someone you know today. Share it from your phone, go share it on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you are. Maybe even give us a rating and review because you know what? It's all about the planet living their life uncloseted. I'm Rick Clemens, host of the show and the guy who helps you make those big, bold moves. And I hope you never stop stepping out, stepping up, and stepping in to living your life uncloseted. Catch you real soon. Take care, everyone.